I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with striving to always be achieving. I don't think that that in and of itself is unhealthy. And one of the ways I think about this a lot is in the context of athletes and the context of addicts. And it's pretty upsetting if you say to lawyers, actually, I think you're much more like an addict than you are like an athlete. You think of yourself, we think of ourselves, because I'm talking to myself as well. We think of ourselves as athletes. We think of ourselves as high performing, as people who are special, as people who are chosen, as people who can do things with our bodies and our minds in particular that hardly anyone else can do. There's a very small elite group of us who can do this. And not only is it the work that we do, it's what we put ourselves through to do that work. So it's not just that we're very, very bright, it's that we achieve these things that we achieve on very little sleep, under high amounts of stress, with very short time frames, and we continue to deliver time and time again. We continue to win because we do the thing that needed to be done, we get it delivered, and it's correct. So if you had this situation where we won, we're the athlete who won, we won the race, every time we win the race, if every time you didn't sleep, you were totally stressed, you were not looking after yourself, you were eating really badly, you weren't going to the gym, and you then did your legal task, you then delivered your deal, you delivered your statement of claim or your defence, whatever it is that you're doing, and later you found it was wrong and you'd stuffed it up, if that happened, then we would reflect and we would change the way we do things. But that's not what happens. Because we learn how to use adrenaline and we learn how to use the pressure, we actually lift our performance incredibly well. That's how lawyers and law firms work. We lift our performance. So even though despite all of those kind of consequences, all those sort of problems that we're having in terms of sleep and stress and personal life problems, all that sort of stuff, we still perform. So what we're getting is a gold medal every time we do that, because the work is done and the work is correct and there were no errors, and often it's very, very good. Sometimes I often achieve better under pressure. Most of us do, I suspect. It sort of comes with the territory. We achieve better under pressure than we do if we're not under pressure, because the adrenaline kicks in and it's like protecting yourself from a saber-toothed tiger. You find strength and ideas and resilience that you never knew you had, because that's what your body will do for you. So we think of ourselves like we're athletes because we feel like we're always getting a gold star and a gold medal at the end. But actually, that's not how athletes behave. They don't do that. They rest. They eat properly. They minimise stress. They train their bodies in a number of different ways, and they also train their minds. If you're a swimmer, you don't just swim. You also run, you also do weights, you also do Pilates. If you're a footballer, you don't just kick the ball. You also lift weights, you also run, you also do ballet, right? Athletes actually train their bodies, and they have off seasons. Lawyers have no off seasons. There's no point at which we get to go and kind of intellectually gain 10 kilos. Like an athlete in the off season, we are always on. We get 4 weeks off, but we're still working. It'd be like an athlete supposedly having off season, but actually training in the same way every day. That's what lawyers do. But we think of ourselves as athletes, but we don't at all look after ourselves as though we are. How we actually behave is much more like an addict. We keep going back for the high, for the success, despite the damage it does to us, despite the emotional cost, and for many people, the mental health cost, despite the fact that it turns a number of people into real addicts, into actually often alcoholics, despite the fact that it damages our personal relationships, that we lose marriages, that we don't know our children, that we feel that we are letting everybody down in our lives personally. But we keep going back every time. And the only other class that I think of that's like that keeps doing something that harms them in order to get a particular result, are addicts. And that's actually what we're like. We're not like athletes, but we think of ourselves as though we're athletes. And we think that if we stopped doing the thing that we're addicted to, that life would not be worth living. And that's a lot like an addict as well. So I think we can be high achieving, but we need to be honest with ourselves about how we do it and what we do to ourselves and each other in this environment. But athletes do amazing things in the environment that they have, and we could follow their lead. We could treat ourselves like athletes. We could treat each other like athletes by being balanced, by having off seasons, by developing different skills, different abilities. And then I think we wouldn't know what we would achieve. I think we could achieve something unimaginable, because we would actually be building ourselves, building our intellectual capabilities, our physical capabilities, and our mental capabilities in a way that actually meets the task at hand, rather than just constantly using our evolutionary biology to act like we're being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger in order to get the result that is acceptable. The problem is the feedback loop. You know, in martial arts, you're getting injured, and same with sports, you're injured. And if you're injured, you have to stop playing. And that helps you prevent yourself from getting injured, because the last thing you want is to not be able to play. And that's what's missing in this kind of maybe analogy, is that we don't see the injury the same way as you do if you're an athlete when you do the wrong thing. If you eat the wrong food, you know, if you're carrying too much weight, if you're training too hard, if you're training in the wrong way, if you play in the wrong way, if the team doesn't work together, the feedback is pretty instant. And the problem for lawyers is that it's not instant, it's down the track. So it comes later. It comes whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 50, don't know, but the consequences are later. And so we get to pretend they're not there, we get to ignore them. And what we get to do is tell ourselves that that's other people, that's not us, because we're special. So that might happen to non-lawyers, but it won't happen to lawyers because we're elite. Or it might happen to other lawyers, but we're more elite than those elite lawyers. We're even better than them, so it won't happen to us. That's the story that we tell ourselves, because the consequences are not clear in front of us. And that's where we really struggle. That's why the profession struggles to change. It can't see the damage that's being done.